Steve.
Chapter 16. Taking Flight. It is Sunday, the 24th day of Dharma. It is 11 p.m. Jerome and Danish are huddled under a stand of maple trees, trying to shield themselves from the downpour they were currently enduring. Danish raised his voice to be heard over the roar of the torrential rain.
We should pitch tents now. We've made good progress, and we'll see Black Mountain midday tomorrow if the weather breaks.
Jerome answered.
I agree. The cloud cover renders us incapable of using the stars for guidance, and going back to the road would cost us too much time. Give the order, and we'll camp here.
The small troop, consisting of Jerome and Danish, along with 3 gnomish intel thieves, Danis, Parsimane, and Torvis, and 2 half-breeds of the palace guard Lord Oticum had sent along, Panamid, a half-noid, half-sprite, and Treleem, a half-sprite, half-elf, was still about 16 miles from Black Mountain, and since they had left the road to avoid being observed by what could turn out to be the enemy, that meant about 8 hours' march, as opposed to the 6 hours it would have been without having to trudge through the foliage. But the camouflage was necessary, and it wasn't any drier on the road right now than it was out in the woods. In fact, with the tree cover, it was perhaps drier where they were.
Tents should be up in half an hour. We found a spot underneath some pines where the fallen needles created a natural sieve, allowing the water to pass through, so it should be relatively dry.
Excellent. Tell everyone to keep in mind how soft the beds are at the Robin, not to mention how soft the ladies are at the Robin.
Rantine sat on a small lounger in the suite at the Rabbit Hole, the inn and splurt house in the gnomish city of Dans. Across from her on one of the beds, Tanea sat, propped up on pillows. She and Tanea had arrived earlier that day and rented the suite with money Parthas had given them before they left Harless. They were planning to stay the night before departing for Boniscus in the morning, but she was growing increasingly concerned about Tanea. The normally chatty and pleasant Tauntaun had been disturbingly quiet ever since they departed Harless that morning. Of course, after the harrowingly traumatic experience she had suffered at the hands of Minerva's witches, being withdrawn to a large degree should be expected. But Rantine sensed there was more troubling the pretty little gnome maiden than that, as if that wasn't enough.
Worried about Pappy, sweetheart?
Rantine asked.
Yes, dear. Very, very worried. I know precious little about battle strategy, but I just don't believe Pappy, along with 7 archers, can stand against what Minerva may have planned for them.
Oh, honey. We don't know that Minerva is even interested in the maid anymore, especially since she has learned that Mithila has departed. Besides, Pappy is one sharp-minded Noid. He's probably a step ahead of Minerva and her witch horde.
Oh, I hope so, Rantine. I certainly do hope so, but my heart tells me otherwise. Pappy is a very smart man, but also a proud and honorable man. He will place the lives of all his maidens ahead of his own, and if he can't get them out of Harless, he will die defending them. Oh, Rantine, Pappy is the closest thing to a father I've ever known. My parents died when I was very young, and I was raised in an orphanage. I can't lose him.
And with that, Tanea broke down and began to weep uncontrollably. Rantine jumped up and ran to her, and taking Tanea's small frame into her arms, she began to gently rock her.
Now, Tauntaun, sweetheart. You know Pappy is just too damn stubborn and proud to allow anyone, especially that despicable cunt Minerva, to get the upper hand on him. I'd wager that he and Zeth are sitting on the porch nursing a drink and enjoying a bowl this very minute, planning their next move.
So glad you are here, Ranny. Can I sleep in your bed with you tonight? Will you hold me all night long and wake me when the nightmares begin? If you hold me, maybe I'll feel safer and the dreams won't be so terrible. Maybe I can rest a bit. Please, Ranny? Please?
Tauntaun. Of course, darling. I would love to hold you all night and help chase those nasty dreams away. I love you, Tun. You have to know that by now.
Oh, you are so sweet. And I love you too, Ranny. I have for quite some time now.
And as Rantine gently ran her fingers through the pretty little gnome maiden's hair, she wondered to herself,
Damn those witches. How could any being be so cold as to terrorize such a sweet little gnome as Tanea? Hail the inherent. What is Aeros coming to?
Rantine continued to stroke Tanea's head as she softly chanted,
Restaurati, Cardatum, Espiratu, Tonea.
which roughly translates to restore Tanea's heart and spirit. Rantine, as you will recall, is an elf, and the elvish mage centers on healing of spirit, body, and mind. Yet even as she recited the incantation, she knew her efforts would offer only a minimal amount of relief from the terrible anguish the witch's curses had thrust poor Tonea into. Parthis had indeed been wise in sending her to the healers and spirit ministers of immense skill which reside in Beniscus. Yet Rantine continued the chant in spite of the fact that she knew only a tiny amount of relief would result from her efforts. But Tonea was worth the effort. Whatever she could do, she would. Shania frantically paced back and forth on the polished wooden floor of her suite, waving her arms in the air in pure frustration.
I can't believe you're breaking your vow to my father this quickly and over something this trivial.
Well, to a sprite, especially the sprite foretold, I'm sure it isn't an issue at all. But to an earthbound creature such as myself, being carted 150 yards up in the air by my bootlaces is a bit more drastic a concept than I expected to have to deal with.
Oh, you stubborn, bull-headed asshole. You make it sound as if you would be in constant danger of falling. Blessings inherent. You'll be the safest being in the formation. 6 strong male sprites will be toting you on a device that has been proven trustworthy over time. Shitfire Dar. Even if 4 of them were taken out, which is very highly unlikely, 2 would still be sufficient to keep you airborne. And if those 2 were to somehow fall, I'd carry your idiotic bald-headed ass safely to the ground myself.
You are not enhancing my confidence in this device, or the sprites that carry it by telling me what would happen should 4 of them be shot down.
So, you're going to just abandon me then? Fine. I knew it was too good to be true when you first told me you had vowed to my father to never leave my side.
I am not abandoning you! I will arrive in Pandaena only 10 hours behind you, less if I run as much as possible.
You just don't get it, you stupid little ass pimple. Unless you fly, then whatever is about to transpire in Pandaena will be over before you arrive. I need you with me now.
Silence ensued. After about a minute, Shania gently broke the silence.
Dar, please understand. There will no doubt be trials which require much more courage to be summoned than what you will have to muster to fly with me tonight. If you balk at this, how can I trust you to stand firm throughout the ordeals we will no doubt face from this point forward? Please, Dar, don't make me beg.
Shania's voice began to break as tears started to run down her cheeks.
Please, Dar. I have known you since before you knew your plunger had a user side from pissing, and I know there is not a cowardly bone in your body. I need you, you nasty little shit stain.
With that, Shania covered her face with her hands and began to softly sob. Silence again ensued, as they both sat with their heads bowed. Neither spoke for perhaps a minute, when Darkeenum slowly raised his head and quietly said,
Shit! In the name of blue thundering fuck! Very well, Nea. I just cannot bear to see you cry. Never could. Okay, I'll fly. But you have to swear to the Inherent that if I piss myself, you won't poke fun at me, nor will you ever tell a soul.
Shania rushed to him and falling to her knees, hugged him tightly, saying,
No, by the Inherent I'll never say a word to anyone. Oh, I love you, Darkeenum, son of Darvis. I knew in my heart you couldn't abandon me, I just knew it.
I love you too, Nea. But don't expect me to be anything but a frightened, grumpy bastard of a gnome until my feet are firmly planted on Pandaenian soil, and I reserve the right to be a bit of a bastard even after that.
Be all the bastards you wish to be, my love. I would so much rather be in the company of Darkeenum, the grumpy bastard, than to be without my Darkeenum at all.
The Controvisory was a veritable beehive of activity, as it had by default become command central for what was being dubbed the Witch War. The runners Audicum had dispatched early that morning were returning with news of movement of troops from the east and southeast. Noid soldiery, converted city guards as it were, had mobilized and were headed, and were likely already there by now, to preen to sortie with elven soldiers and prepare to head west to the gnome cities, then divide, and from that point send aid to the Noid cities of the north. The Minister refused to send aid at this point, but were sending a representative to Beniscus to discuss matters and inform of the judgments the Justice Supreme had rendered concerning this disturbance. He would arrive in the morning. Manish was busy as well, as the Solitarian sect's part in the Witch War grew by the minute. Members of the Messenger Corps were arriving with pieces of news from the cities where the sect had been deployed. 125 were positioned surrounding Pandaena, and another 125 southwest of Tanella. The messenger from the Noid cities of the north had just arrived and was making his report to Manish.
Aeros, I hate to interrupt, but I think this is news you should hear firsthand.
Aeros rose and walked to the foot of the table where Manish had set up his sect headquarters.
Proceed with the report, please.
Sires, ogres have attacked the splurt house known as the Wayward Maid, just south of Harlis. It was burned to the ground, but all the maidens and their guests escaped to the north before the fire was set. It was already aflame when we arrived, but we were able to force the ogres to retreat. They were over 1,000 strong, and we believe their intentions were to destroy the Wayward Maid, and then proceed north to attack Harlis. Another detachment of ogres, likely from Pish, attacked Norton, the northernmost of the Noid cities, but we, along with the city guard, were already in position and routed them post-haste. It would appear that Minerva felt she could subdue the Noid cities before we could position our defenses.
And were it not for the sect, she would have succeeded. 1,000 thanks again to you, Manish, and your solitarians. This night would have been disastrous for the Noid cities and the free peoples of Aeros had you not intervened.
No thanks necessary, Aeros. We are honored to serve. How many casualties were suffered?
Few. No sprites were killed, only minor injuries from clubs and stones. A few sprites were darted, but only green tips, and all the darted had recovered before I departed. Unfortunately, 6 archers that had been hired to guard the maid were killed before we arrived, and the owner of the maid was darted. Unfortunately, he was darted with a yellow-tipped dart. He should be arriving here momentarily via Sprite Beer to be treated.
Parthas, I've met him once. Seemed to be a good and honorable Noid, and Jerome thinks the world of him.
Honorable indeed. He was darted defending the maidens. According to the one Prentarian archer who survived, Parthas waded into the enemy like a man possessed, taking no heed of their massive numbers.
He shall receive the finest treatment the half-breed city can provide. This is shaping up to be a long night, gentlemen, for I fear Minerva has yet more planned for us before the cock crows.
Darkeenum, Shania, and the 6 beer bearers and 6 alternates stood in the outdoor atrium just beyond the garden in front of the palace of Boniscus, preparing to take flight. This entourage that Manish had assembled to aid Shania in her quest, plus Darkeenum, had been dubbed the 13. Shania was attired in full battle gear, comprised of various articles she had been given in Pandaena upon her escape from Rorsch, plus gear she had used since her days of training in the fields of Ranagar with Ranaman, Janerid, and Darkeenum. A 3/4 length broadsword hung on her back beneath her wings from a shoulder belt and scabbard. Her small shield she would secure to the Sprite Beer, as it would be cumbersome in flight. A dagger with a 10-inch blade was secured in a scabbard on her belt. An armored bustier of hardened armory tin with a blue leather jerkin underneath, along with a stiff leather kidney belt with filigree insets, and hardened leather shoulder pads adorned the upper part of her lovely, slender body. A leather battle kilt with a chainmail gird covered her abdominal region, and thigh-high boots with hardened armory tin knee guards finished off her assault ensemble. Darkeenum was also in full battle attire. Manish had supplied him with hardened leather upper body armor, which was a near match to what the rest of the 13 wore. He also wore a brown leather kidney belt of gnomish design and brown armadillo-style armored boots made in Boniscus. He also had a 3/4 length broadsword on his back, a 10-inch dagger holstered and attached to a double leg belt with ornate filigree adornment, which was held in place through a loop on his brown breeches, and a small black shield he had had made for him in Boniscus, which would be secured to the beer along with Shania's. Needless to say, Darkeenum was in quite the pissy mood, due to his distinct aversion to his upcoming inaugural flight.
Naya, have I told you how much I despise you?
Yes, multiple times since you agreed to fly. If it makes you feel any better, I think you're an asshole. Hate me all you want, just get strapped in and fly with me tonight. It'll be an adventure. It'll break new ground, as it's basically the only thing you haven't done with me in the 48 years we've known each other.
Doesn't matter how hard you try to sell the idea. I despise you all the same, you smarmy little troll turd. For this you will surely pay.
I shudder to think what you might have in mind for payment. I assume it will be quite taxing upon my poor Smacky, you nasty little nomoperv.
You ain't seen nasty yet, my darling, and I...
Begging pardon, Darkeenum. Milady.
Parnell, a tall, strong Solitarian and captain of the 13, interrupted their lovingly offensive banter.
It's time to get you strapped in, sir. Do you prefer to be on your back or stomach?
Darkeenum made his eyes appear as evil as he could and locked his gaze on Shania.
Cunt?
Prick?
Okay, stomach, back, what's the difference?
On your back you will see only stars. On your belly you will be able to see where we are headed. Your choice, but once we are airborne you cannot change.
Well, shit. It's a damn good thing for you, oh great foretold one, that I love you as much as I do. Otherwise I would stick my foot so far up your ass your breath would smell of boot oil.
Oh, shut it, Pusswash. You aren't going to do anything but lie down on that beer and fly to Pandaena with me. Now answer him. Back or belly?
Belly, I guess. If I'm going to die, I suppose I would prefer to see what it is that's going to kill me.
Shania knelt in front of him, and embracing him she whispered in his ear,
Thank you, my little darling. You have no idea what this means to me.
She placed a hand behind his bald, round head and pressed her lips against his. He returned the kiss passionately. When the kiss broke, he pushed her away and said,
Yeah, you're welcome. Now let go of me, you gangly-assed fart merchant, so I can prepare to die.
And with that, he laid down upon the bier, and the Solitarians began to strap him in. The bier was in actuality quite comfortable. Basically, it was a thickly wound cargo net, 6 feet wide by 10 feet long, with 6 handholds for the bearers to grip. There were also straps to go around the wrist of each bearer, so even should the bearer let go of the handle, he would still be toting the payload. The mattress, which was central of the net, was quite thick and stuffed with burny thistle, and a pillow was attached at the head of the mattress. The bottom of the mattress was sewn to the netting, and the straps also were attached to the netting, thus holding both the mattress and payload, Darkeenum in this case, securely to the bier.
Our gnome is secured, milady, and we are ready to push.
Very well. May the blessings inherent encompass us as we fly to the aid of Pandaena. I pray we are not too late. To war!
And with that, Shania turned and began to run. Her wings spread and began to vibrate and beat much the same as a dragonfly's do, and she lifted off into the night air. Darkeenum's knuckles were white as he tightened his grip upon the netting. He could hear the drone of the running bearer's wings as they vibrated furiously. Then, liftoff. He closed his eyes tightly as he felt himself rise as they defied gravity. His inner altitude gauge could tell they were steadily rising, yet his stomach, it seemed, had not tagged along and was still upon the ground. He opened his eyes and looking down could see that they had already ascended about 50 feet and were still climbing. Darkeenum began to shout,
Shania, you bitch, you fucking bitch! I hate you, I fucking hate you! I want my mommy!
Shania couldn't help but giggle under her breath as she positioned herself above her poor distressed best friend, as close as she dared, as she didn't want to get her wings tangled with the bearers.
Oh, quit being such a pussy. You're acting like a little girly gnome. In fact, most little girly gnomes would be enjoying this, you little sissy puss.
Fuck you, bitch! And you swore you wouldn't make fun of me! Liar!
You really do need to clean the troll shit out of your ears, sissy boy. I said I wouldn't make fun of you if you pissed yourself. I never made any other vow aside from that.
And then, silence. Darkeenum began to mildly convulse, and Shania could see that his breathing was fast and labored.
Parnell, can you support my weight as well as Darkeenum's?
For a short spell, milady, but only for a short spell.
Then I need you to do so, please. Tell me when I need to lift off.
With that, she folded her wings and dropped onto the bier alongside her frightened, trembling companion.
Darkeenum! Darkeenum, son of Darvis!
What?
Honey, relax. You're pulling too much air. Bury your face in the pillow and breathe slowly. That's it. I can only stay beside you for a minute, so close your eyes and listen to the sound of my voice. Restauratai serentanai, I cardatum shalaima Darkeenum.
This translated roughly to restore tranquility and peace of heart to Darkeenum. As she softly chanted the mantra over and over into Darkeenum's ear, she could feel him slowly relax. His death grip upon the netting did not loosen, but the hyperventilation and mild convulsions ceased.
I have to lift off again, dearest. But I shall be just a few feet above you, and I shall stay there until we are in Pandaena. You'll be fine, and I'll talk you through all the way if I need to. I love you.
Shania stood upon the bier, leaped into the air, and the drone of her wings lifted her and held her aloft. She positioned herself as close to Darkeenum as she dared, again, fearing entanglement with the wings of the bearers. She felt bad about shaming him into flying now. She had no idea how terrifying this experience would be for him. It's hard for a sprite to fathom fear of heights.
Right here, Dar. Hang in there, sweetheart. This will all be over soon. I love you.
I'm okay. And I love you too. But I still think you're a bitch.
A small sigh of relief escaped Shania's lips. Hearing him make semi-vulgar jest toward her reassured her of his well-being. Well, as well as his being could be, considering.
Okay. And I still think you're an asshole. Hold on, darling. You're doing great. Almost there.
This flight couldn't be over soon enough. For either of them.